The Xylos Federation had ruled the science of the galaxy for 12,000 years. They were the oldest, the smartest, the most advanced. Every other species looked to them for answers. Every other species copied their technology. Every other species accepted that the Xylos knew everything worth knowing. When it came to gravity, the Xylos were sure they had mastered it. They had anti-gravity drives that lifted their ships without effort. They had levitation fields that carried heavy objects through their cities. They had artificial gravity on every ship and every station. For the Xylos, gravity was simple. Things fell down. Planets orbited stars. That was all. They had understood this for millennia. They had no reason to ask more questions. Then they found Earth. The Xylos scout ship entered the human solar system on a routine mission. They were looking for new resources, new species, new worlds to trade with. They did not expect anything special. Earth was a small blue planet orbiting a small yellow star. Nothing unusual. But when the scouts measured the gravity on Earth's surface, they were surprised. The gravity was high. Very high. Much higher than the Xylos' home world. A Xylos scientist named Orin looked at the readings and shook his head. Poor creatures, he said. They must live very hard lives. Every step they take is a fight against the pull. Every object they lift is heavy. No wonder they are so slow. The other scientists agreed. They had seen high-gravity worlds before. The creatures on those worlds were always the same. Thick bodies, short legs, small brains. Gravity crushed their spirits and their intelligence. The Xylos expected humans to be brutes, strong but stupid. They sent a small team to study Earth up close. The team landed in a field near a human city. They wore suits that hid their appearance. They brought machines to measure and record. They expected to find primitive creatures living in caves. Instead, they found a world full of strange things. Tall buildings that touched the sky. Metal birds that flew through the air. Small boxes in every pocket that glowed and made noise. The humans themselves were not thick or short. They were tall and thin. They moved quickly. They did not seem crushed by the gravity at all. Orin was confused. How do they live in this heavy world? He asked his team. No one had an answer. The Xylos team spent 3 weeks on Earth. They watched humans run and jump and climb. They watched humans build and create and talk. They watched humans laugh and cry and dream. The humans did not act like high-gravity brutes. They acted like something else. Something the Xylos had never seen before. But the Xylos still believed they had nothing to learn from humans. Humans had no anti-gravity technology. Humans could not even lift their ships off the ground without fire and smoke. They were primitive. They were young. They could teach the Xylos nothing about gravity. That was when they met Dr. Elena Vargas. Dr. Vargas was a physicist at a small university near the ocean. She was not famous. She was not rich. She was just a woman who loved questions. When the Xylos team visited her lab, they expected to see simple machines and old books. Instead, they saw equations. Hundreds of equations. Equations that made no sense to the Xylos scientists. Orin looked at the equations on her whiteboard. He saw symbols he did not recognize. He saw numbers that seemed to bend and twist. He saw a language he could not read. "What is this?" he asked. Dr. Vargas smiled. She was a small woman with gray hair and bright eyes. She wore a simple shirt and old shoes. She looked nothing like a great scientist. But when she spoke, her voice was full of fire. "That," she said, "is general relativity." Orin had never heard the words before. "What does it mean?" Dr. Vargas walked to the board. She pointed to the first equation. "It means you have been wrong about gravity for 12,000 years. The Xylos team went silent. No one had ever spoken to them like that. They were the smartest species in the galaxy. They were never wrong. Orin's voice was cold. "Explain." Dr. Vargas took a breath. She had been waiting for this moment her whole life. Not because she wanted to be famous, but because she wanted to share the truth. "Gravity is not a force," she said. "Things do not fall because something pulls them. Things fall because space itself is curved. Imagine a heavy ball on a stretched cloth. The cloth bends. Now roll a small marble. The marble follows the bend. That is gravity. Mass tells space how to curve. Curved space tells matter how to move." Orin stared at her. His mind tried to understand. "Space curves?" "Yes," Dr. Vargas said. "And when space curves, time also curves. Gravity slows down time. A clock on the ground runs slower than a clock in space. We have measured it. We proved it 60 years ago." The Xylos scientists looked at each other. They had never measured such a thing. They had never even thought to try. They had accepted gravity as simple. They had stopped asking questions. Dr. Vargas continued. Gravity also makes waves. When two heavy objects spin around each other, they create ripples in space-time. Like throwing a stone into a pond. Those ripples travel across the universe. We detected them 10 years ago. We heard two black holes colliding a billion light years away. Oren sat down. His legs felt weak. A primitive species. A young species. A species that lived on a crushing high-gravity world. And they had discovered secrets that the Xylos had never even dreamed of. How? He whispered. How did you see what we could not? Dr. Vargas looked out the window. The sun was setting over the ocean. The sky was orange and red and gold. We looked down, she said. Everyone else looks up. They build ships and fly away. They want to escape gravity. But we stayed. We watched. We asked questions about the thing that holds us to the ground. And after 400 years, we started to understand. She turned back to Oren. Her eyes were kind. Gravity is not simple, she said. It is the strangest thing in the universe. And we are just beginning to learn. Oren said nothing. He looked at the equations on the board. They still made no sense. But for the first time in 12,000 years, a Xylos scientist wanted to learn. He wanted to ask questions. He looked at the small human woman and said, Teach me. Dr. Vargas smiled. Sit down, she said. We have a lot of work to do. Oren could not sleep. He lay in his quarters on the Xylos scout ship, staring at the ceiling. The human woman's words played over and over in his head. Space curves. Time slows down. Gravity makes waves. He had never heard any of this before. He had spent 600 years studying physics. He had written 40 papers on gravity. And now a primitive from a high-gravity world had told him he was wrong. He sat up. He needed to know more. The next morning, Oren gathered his team. There were 7 Xylos scientists on Earth. Each one was an expert in something. Motion. Energy. Space. They had all heard Dr. Vargas speak. They were all confused. We need to understand what the humans know, Oren said. We will go back to her lab. We will ask questions. We will not leave until we have answers. The team returned to Dr. Vargas's small university. She was waiting for them. She had cleaned the whiteboard and written new equations. She had set out chairs in a circle. She looked like a teacher ready for the first day of school. Good morning, she said. Please sit. We have much to discuss. The Xylos scientists sat down. Their suits made soft sounds against the plastic chairs. They looked strange in the small room. Too tall. Too thin. Too blue. But Dr. Vargas did not seem to notice. She picked up a marker and walked to the board. Yesterday, she said, I told you that gravity curves space. Today, I will show you what that means. She drew a picture of a star. Then she drew a small dot near the star. This is a beam of light, she said. Light always travels in a straight line. But when it passes near a heavy object like a star, the space around the star is curved. So the light follows the curve. The light bends. Oren raised a hand. Light bends. Light has no mass. How can gravity affect something with no mass? Dr. Vargas smiled. That is exactly the right question. For a long time, humans asked the same thing. And the answer changed everything. Gravity does not pull on light. Light follows the curve of space. The curve is there whether light is there or not. We proved this 100 years ago. We watched the light from distant stars bend around our own sun. A Xylos scientist named Lyra spoke up. You watched light bend around your sun. How? The sun is too bright. You cannot see stars near the sun. We waited for a solar eclipse, Dr. Vargas said. When the moon covered the sun, the sky went dark. We took pictures of the stars near the edge of the sun. The stars were not where they should have been. Their light had bent. Einstein predicted it. We measured it. He was right. The Xylos team was silent. They had never thought to test gravity during an eclipse. They had never thought light could bend. They had accepted gravity as simple. Humans had asked the hard questions. Dr. Vargas continued. Now let me show you something stranger. Time dilation. She drew a line across the board. Imagine 2 clocks. One on the ground. One on a tall mountain. The clock on the ground is closer to Earth. Gravity is stronger there. Time moves slower. The clock on the mountain is farther from Earth. Gravity is weaker there. Time moves faster. We have measured this. The difference is very small. But it is real. Oren's head hurt. Time moves at different speeds. Time is time. It is constant. No, Dr. Vargas said. Time is not constant. Time is part of space. Together, they are space-time. Gravity changes space-time. So gravity changes time. Your anti-gravity technology works because you create fields that cancel gravity. But do you know why those fields work? The Xylos scientists looked at each other. They did not know. They had built the technology from old plans. They knew how to use it. They did not know why it worked. Dr. Vargas nodded. That is the difference between us. You have technology without understanding. We have understanding without technology. For 400 years, humans have studied gravity. We have no anti-gravity ships. We cannot float our cities. But we know gravity bends light. We know gravity slows time. We know gravity makes waves. She walked to a computer on her desk. She typed a few commands. A graph appeared on the screen. The graph showed 2 lines. One line was smooth. The other line was wavy. This is a recording from a human machine called LIGO, she said. It detects gravitational waves. In 2015, we heard 2 black holes colliding. They were 1.3 billion light-years away. Each black hole was 30 times heavier than our sun. They spun around each other. They made ripples in space-time. Those ripples traveled across the universe. And we heard them. We heard the universe breathe. Oren stood up. He walked to the screen. He stared at the wavy line. His hands were shaking. You heard black holes colliding. We heard the echo, Dr. Vargas said. Gravity speaks. You just have to know how to listen. Lyra spoke again. Her voice was small. We have never heard these waves. Our instruments are better than yours. Our technology is thousands of years ahead. How did we miss this? Dr. Vargas turned to face her. Because you never listened. You thought you already knew everything about gravity. So you stopped asking questions. Humans never stopped. We asked why things fall. We asked why the moon stays in the sky. We asked why light bends and time slows. We built machines to hear the universe. We did not have the best technology. But we had the best questions. Oren looked around the room. He looked at his team. They were all staring at the screen. They were all shaking. A primitive species. A young species. A species that could not even lift a ship without fire. And they understood gravity better than the Xylos Federation. He turned back to Dr. Vargas. Teach us, he said. Everything. From the beginning. Dr. Vargas picked up her marker. She walked to the whiteboard. She erased the old equations and started writing new ones. Let us start with a falling apple, she said. And a man named Isaac Newton. He lived 400 years ago. He asked a simple question. Why does the apple fall straight down? The Xylos scientists opened their notebooks. They picked up their pens. They were ready to learn. For the first time in 12,000 years, the smartest species in the galaxy was sitting in a classroom. And the teacher was a human. 3 days had passed since Dr. Vargas first explained general relativity to the Xylos scientists. They had listened. They had taken notes. They had asked questions. But deep inside, they still did not believe. How could a primitive species know more about gravity than the Xylos Federation? It did not make sense. It could not be true. Oren spoke for the whole team when he said, Dr. Vargas, your ideas are very interesting. But interesting is not proof. You speak of gravitational waves. You say you have heard them. We need to see this for ourselves. Dr. Vargas nodded. She had expected this. All right, she said. Come with me. She led them out of the university and into a small building behind the main campus. The building looked old. The paint was peeling. The door squeaked when she opened it. Inside, the room was dark and cool. Machines sat on metal tables. Wires hung from the ceiling. It looked like a workshop, not a laboratory. In the center of the room, on a simple wooden table, sat a small black box. It was no bigger than a human head. It had no buttons. It had no screens. It just sat there, quiet and patient. Dr. Vargas picked up the box carefully. This is a laser interferometer, she said. It is not a weapon. It is not an engine. It is a tool for listening to gravity. Oren looked at the box. It looked so simple. So small. How could such a thing hear the universe? How does it work? He asked. Dr. Vargas set the box on the table. Inside this box, there is a laser. The laser shoots a beam of light down a long tunnel. The beam splits into 2 paths. Each path bounces off mirrors and comes back. The 2 beams recombine. If the paths are the same length, the light cancels out. If a gravitational wave passes through Earth, It stretches one path and squeezes the other. The light no longer cancels. We see a flicker. That flicker is the universe talking. Lyra, the Xylo's motion expert, stepped closer. The change in length would be incredibly small. Smaller than a single atom. How can you measure that? Dr. Vargas smiled. We built tunnels 4 kilometers long. We hung mirrors on special glass threads. We put everything in a vacuum. We spent 40 years making the machine quiet enough to hear. And in 2015, we heard our first wave. Oren crossed his arms. You heard a wave. But how do we know it was real? How do we know it was not just noise? Dr. Vargas pointed to the black box. This is a portable version. It is not as sensitive as the big machines. But it can still hear the loudest waves. There is a pair of dead stars on the other side of the galaxy. They are called a binary neutron star system. They are spinning around each other. They are getting closer. Soon they will crash. Right now, they are making gravitational waves. Loud ones. This box can hear them. She turned the box on. A soft hum filled the room. A small screen lit up. It showed a flat green line. Nothing else. Now we wait, Dr. Vargas said. The Xylo scientists stood in silence. They watched the green line. Nothing happened. 1 minute passed. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Oren began to tap his foot. He was getting impatient. He was about to speak when the line moved. It was small at first. A tiny wiggle. Then another. Then another. The wiggles grew larger. They formed a pattern. A chirp. A sound that went up and then stopped. Dr. Vargas pointed at the screen. There, she said. That is a gravitational wave. 2 neutron stars spinning around each other. They are about 500 million light years away. That wave has been traveling across the universe for 500 million years. And now it is here. In this room. In this small black box. Oren stared at the screen. His mouth was open. His hands were shaking. He had never seen anything like this. The Xylos had machines that could detect gravity. They had anti-gravity drives and levitation fields. But they had never heard gravitational waves. They had never even thought to listen. Lyra spoke first. Her voice was barely a whisper. It is real. The wave is real. The other Xylos scientists gathered around the screen. They watched the pattern repeat. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Each time the same shape. Each time the same song. The universe was singing, and humans had learned the words. Oren turned to Dr. Vargas. His eyes were wide. His face was pale. You have been hearing these for how long? 10 years, she said. Since 2015. We have heard dozens of waves. Black holes colliding. Neutron stars merging. Each one tells a story. Each one teaches us something new about the universe. And no other species knows this. Dr. Vargas shook her head. You are the first aliens we have met. So no other species knows. You have anti-gravity ships. You can float across the galaxy. But you never listened. You never heard the music. The Xylos team stood in silence. They looked at the small black box. They looked at the green line still wiggling on the screen. They looked at the human woman who had shown them something impossible. The door opened. A tall Xylos walked in. It was Ambassador Vex, the head of the Xylos mission to Earth. He had heard about the demonstration and had come to see for himself. He looked at the screen. He looked at his scientists. He looked at Dr. Vargas. What else do you know? He whispered. Dr. Vargas picked up the black box. She held it gently, like a mother holding a child. We know that gravity is the oldest voice in the universe, she said. Every black hole that has ever fallen, every star that has ever died, every collision since the beginning of time. They all sing, and we are finally learning to hear the song. She set the box back on the table. We know that time runs slower near heavy objects. We know that black holes are not holes but spheres of pure gravity. We know that the universe is expanding faster every day. We know that most of the gravity in the universe comes from something we cannot see. We call it dark matter. We do not know what it is. But we are asking. Ambassador Vex sat down. He looked old suddenly. Tired. We came here to study you, he said. We thought you were primitive. We thought you had nothing to teach us. We were wrong. Dr. Vargas sat down across from him. You were not wrong, she said. You just stopped asking questions. That is the only real mistake any species can make. The green line on the screen kept wiggling. The neutron stars kept spinning. The universe kept singing. And for the first time, the Xylos were listening. The news spread faster than any ship. Within 1 month, Every major empire in the galaxy had heard the story. A primitive species from a high-gravity world had done something impossible. They had heard gravitational waves. They had proven that space curves. They had shown that time slows down near heavy objects. And they had done all of this without anti-gravity technology, without faster-than-light travel, without any of the tools that the advanced species took for granted. At first, no one believed it. The KRYLL Dominion sent their own scientists to check. The Xanan Collective sent a team of observers. The Velax Republic sent their best physicists. They all came to Earth. They all met Dr. Elena Vargas. They all watched the small black box detect waves from distant dead stars. And they all left with the same conclusion. It was true. Every word of it. Within 6 months, Earth had become the most important scientific center in the galaxy. Ships from 100 worlds filled the sky above every human city. Aliens of every shape and size walked the human streets. They came to learn. They came to ask questions. They came to sit at the feet of the species that had understood gravity better than anyone. The Xylos were the first to offer a deal. Ambassador Vex stood before the human government and made a simple proposal. "We will give you our anti-gravity technology," he said. "Every secret, every plan, every machine. In return, we want your knowledge. We want your equations. We want your way of asking questions." The humans agreed. Within a year, human engineers were building anti-gravity ships. Within 2 years, human cities had levitation trains. Within 3 years, human children were learning to float small objects in science class. But the humans did not stop there. They took the Xylos technology and asked new questions. Why did anti-gravity work? What was the field made of? Could it be used for something more than lifting ships? The Xylos had never asked these questions. They had used the technology for 12,000 years without understanding it. The humans understood it in 12 months. Dr. Vargas became the most famous human in the galaxy. She traveled from world to world, giving lectures and teaching classes. Alien scientists filled every seat. Alien children watched her on screens in their schools. She showed them how to build laser interferometers. She taught them how to listen for gravitational waves. She explained general relativity in words that even young students could understand. But her greatest achievement came 5 years after first contact. She proposed a project that no one had ever dreamed of. A gravitational wave map of the entire universe. The project was huge. It needed thousands of machines spread across thousands of worlds. It needed the help of every major empire. It needed years of work and more resources than any single species could provide. But for the first time in galactic history, everyone said yes. The Xylos built the machines. The KRYLL provided the power. The Xanan handled the data. The Velax managed the network. And the humans provided the knowledge. They showed everyone how to point the machines. They showed everyone how to read the signals. They showed everyone how to turn waves into pictures. 10 years after the project began, the first map was complete. Dr. Vargas stood before a huge screen in a room filled with alien leaders. The screen was dark at first. Then lights appeared. Thousands of lights. Millions of lights. Each light was a source of gravitational waves. Each light was a story. Black holes colliding. Neutron stars merging. Supernovas exploding. The universe had been singing for billions of years, and now the galaxy could finally see the song. Ambassador Vex stared at the screen. His eyes were wet. "What are we looking at?" he asked. Dr. Vargas pointed to a bright spot near the center. "That is dark matter," she said. "We cannot see it with light, but we can feel it with gravity. It is everywhere. It holds galaxies together. We have been guessing about it for 100 years. Now we can see where it is." She pointed to another spot. A dark circle with nothing inside. "And that is a hidden black hole. No light comes from it. No ship can see it. But gravity gives it away. It bends the waves around itself. We have found thousands of these. Black holes that no one knew existed." She pointed to a third spot. A strange shape that looked like a twisted ribbon. "And that is the true shape of space-time. Not flat. Not simple. Curved and folded and woven like cloth. We are looking at the bones of the universe." The alien leaders said nothing. They just stared at the screen. For 10,000 years, they had looked at the stars and seen only light. Now they saw something deeper. They saw the hidden skeleton of reality. And a primitive species had shown them how. Human mathematicians became the most sought-after experts in the galaxy. Every empire wanted them. Every school begged for them. They taught alien children to solve problems that had never been solved before. They showed alien scientists new ways to ask questions. They became the bridge between old knowledge and new discovery. Alien children learned a new name. Einstein. They said it alongside their own greatest thinkers. They read his old papers. They studied his old equations. They learned that he had figured out the secrets of gravity with nothing but a pencil and paper. No anti-gravity ships. No faster-than-light travel. Just a mind that refused to stop asking questions. The galaxy realized something important that year. Understanding was more powerful than technology. A species with knowledge could do more than a species with machines. Humans had no anti-gravity drives when they first listened to the universe. But they had something better. They had curiosity. And curiosity had taken them further than any engine ever could. Dr. Vargas stood alone in her lab one night. She looked at the gravitational wave map on her screen. She thought about all the species that had come to Earth to learn. She thought about the children learning Einstein's name. She thought about the hidden black holes and the dark matter and the curved shape of space-time. She smiled. The primitives had become the teachers. And the galaxy would never be the same. 30 years had passed since the day Dr. Elena Vargas first revealed the faint tremor of a gravitational wave to the xylos. She was very old now. Her hair had gone white. Her hands trembled when she wrote. Her body had weakened, but her mind remained sharp in a way that even time seemed unwilling to dull. She no longer walked without assistance. Still, she had one last question left to answer. For 3 decades, humans and xylos had worked side by side. They had mapped distant star clusters, charted black holes, and observed dark matter with precision that once would have been unthinkable. The galaxy had become known in ways it never had before. Yet one problem remained unchanged. Distance. Even with faster-than-light travel, the galaxy was too large to feel connected. Weeks between systems. Days for messages. Months for ships to reach the outermost colonies. Civilization was vast, but still fragmented. Dr. Vargas believed that was not the end of the story. She had a theory. Gravity itself could be used for communication. Not as a wave traveling through space, but as something deeper. Instant. Universal. Most dismissed it. The xylos called it impossible. Even human physicists hesitated. But Dr. Vargas had heard impossible before. She had once been told gravitational waves could never be measured. She had once been told a small, fragile species like humanity could never contribute anything meaningful to galactic science. And yet, here they were. So she continued. The joint Human-Xylos mission launched on a cold morning aboard the vessel Einstein. 20 scientists aboard, 10 human, 10 xylos. Their destination, the outer edge of the galaxy, where stars thinned into darkness and distance became almost abstract. The journey took 6 months. Dr. Vargas did not go. Her body could not endure it. She remained on Earth, watching through live quantum relays, her eyes fixed on a screen that showed a ship drifting deeper into the void. At the edge, the universe felt empty. No nearby stars. No familiar light. Only blackness stretching in every direction, as if reality itself had been stretched thin. The mission leader, Dr. James Chen, stood before a compact device resting on a stabilized table. It resembled an interferometer, but smaller, refined, almost delicate. It was not designed to listen anymore. It was designed to speak. The assumption, Chen said, turning toward the xylos scientists, is that gravity propagates like a wave. That's correct in detection terms. But Dr. Vargas's interpretation is different. A xylos physicist, Tvek, crossed his arms. Then explain it in a way that does not violate causality. Chen nodded. We think gravity is not something that travels. It is something that exists everywhere simultaneously. A structural connection between mass and space-time. If that is true, then influence is not delayed. It is inherent. That is philosophical, not physical, Tvek replied. Chen smiled faintly. That's what people said about quantum entanglement too. Silence followed. Then Chen activated the device. No light flashed. No sound echoed. No visible energy moved outward. The machine simply changed state, like a thought forming in matter. A pulse was sent. Not through space. Through structure. Across Earth, in a quiet laboratory near the ocean, Dr. Elena Vargas sat in a reinforced chair. Beside her was an identical device. For 30 years it had remained inactive, untouched, waiting without confirmation that it would ever matter. Then it changed. A soft light shifted from red to green. A single word appeared on the screen. Hello. Her breath caught. Her trembling hand reached forward and touched the device as if it might disappear. Tears formed instantly, not from confusion, but recognition. Across the galaxy, something had spoken, and she had answered. On the Einstein, Chen watched his screen light up. Received. That was all. But it was enough. The Xylos gathered around in silence. No one spoke for a long time. The message had not traveled. It had not crossed distance. It had simply appeared. Instantly, Tvek lowered himself into a seat. That is not transmission, he whispered. That is violation. Chen shook his head. No. It's recognition. He held the device carefully. We were never sending anything. We were just aligning 2 points that were already connected. The galaxy, for the first time, felt smaller, not in size, but in presence. Dr. Vargas lived long enough to see the system expand. Within a decade, gravity communication networks linked every major civilization. Ships coordinated instantly. Scientific discoveries spread in real time. War became harder to sustain. Isolation became almost impossible. The galaxy stopped feeling like scattered islands. It became a single conversation. On the day of her death, Dr. Vargas asked to be taken outside. She wanted no machines, no screens, no messages. Just Earth. Just gravity. She was carried into a quiet garden where sunlight fell warm on green grass. The wind moved gently through trees. The planet beneath her continued its endless pull, steady and familiar. Beside her sat Seri, a young Xylos researcher. She had studied under human scientists for years. She had come to understand curiosity in a way her own civilization had forgotten. Dr. Vargas, Seri asked softly, why did humans succeed where so many older civilizations failed? The Xylos had better instruments, longer history, greater computation. And yet you saw what we did not. Vargas smiled faintly. Because you were looking outward. Seri tilted her head. And humans were not. We were, Vargas said. But we also looked down. She gestured weakly toward the ground. We tried to escape gravity. You tried to calculate it. We did something else. What was that? Seri asked. We listened to it. Silence settled between them. Then Seri asked, what will humans discover next? Vargas closed her eyes. The sunlight touched her face one last time. I don't know, she said softly. But we will ask. Her breathing slowed. The garden remained still. The planet continued to hold her, as it had held every human before her. And then she was gone. Not drifting away. Not lost. Simply returned to the same force that had always been there. Gravity did not release her. It kept her. The galaxy would later record her discovery as the beginning of the instant age. But those who understood it best knew it was something simpler. Not a breakthrough in travel. Not a weapon. Not even a technology. It was a question finally asked in the right direction. And humans, as they always had, continued to ask.